Oh, fabulous. Well, we've just hit the top of the hour, so I'd like to welcome everyone who's just joined into our webinar, which is 7 surefire ways to boost morale in the contact center, which is a bit of a tongue twister to say, but I think we'll get a lot of value from today's webinar and from our panelists. Delighted to introduce to you our panelists, Dan Ross from Moo, Fran Cork from OVO Energy, and Richard Kenny from Plantronics. So, Dan, if you'd like to introduce yourself and your role within Moo, and perhaps a little bit about Moo, if people haven't come across you before.
Sure. So, I'm the Director of Customer Experience at Moo.com, and Moo.com is an online business stationery provider. And our goal is to make it as easy and simple as possible for businesses, large and small, to design beautifully crafted business stationery.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And Fran from OVO, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. My name's Fran Cork. I'm Service Quality Manager in Customer Services for OVO Energy. So my remit involves training, recruitment, and employee engagement. So OVO is a relatively young company. We started just 7 years ago with a vision that we would demystify some of the complexities of the utility market and make it a better place for customers. And we seem to be doing really well. We've grown massively in the last 7 years, both in terms of our customer base and our headcount internally as well. So it's all fun and game.
Excellent. And Richard from Plantronics, if you'd like to introduce yourself as well.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Richard. I am Head of Global Marketing for our contact center business at Plantronics. Been working in the industry for about 13, 14 years now, and I suspect that most of you know who Plantronics are. If not, have a quick look around your contact center at the headsets that everybody's wearing there. We're the biggest provider of those.
Wonderful. It's great to have you on board. Just a little bit of housekeeping to run through with you. We will have a replay available later on today. That's at callcenterhelp.com/recorded webinars. We'll be going through quite a large amount of detail in that. So you can. I know a lot of you do like to share this with your teams and with your management teams. There is a bottle of champagne or a box of chocolates for the best tip on how to motivate employees. So if you'd like to use the hashtag #question in the chat room or hashtag tip, which would be great. And where you enter that is in our chat room here, which is callcenterhelper.com/chat. There's the details at the bottom, and you can get hold of the webinar slides there by just clicking on this link once you're logged in. What I'd like to do, though, I'd like to do a short exploration of a couple of polls, and I'd just like to look at, is it about motivating different groups of people. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to start off by finding out if there's any age differences, by and large, you find in motivating. So what would you say would be the easiest group of employees to motivate? Is it those aged 16 to 24, those aged 25 to 34? Do you find it's those aged 35 to 44, or do you find it's aged 45 plus? So it'd be quite interesting to see which group of employees do you find it easiest to motivate. So Dan, I don't know if you've got any clues of what you think is likely to be the top answer there.
I would have thought that it was easiest to motivate people in the 35 and up group, actually. But maybe it depends on other factors or what industry you're in. Yeah, I think the millennials are much harder. Someone once said that if you ask a millennial, if you ask someone over 35 to jump, they'd say how high. Whereas if you asked a millennial how high to jump, they'd say why. So.
Very good. Well, let's have a look at the results of that, and our audience say, oh, actually, contrary to what we'd expected, it seems to be a younger demographic. I guess 18 to 24 may be easier to motivate because I guess they're sort of fresh to to ideas, 36%. Those aged 25 to 34, 40%. 80% of 35 to 44s, and 7% 45 plus. Richard Kenny from Plantronics. I don't know if you've got any take on this. I know you've looked at millennials in the past.
Yeah, I was thinking it's the age group younger than me, and I'm quite surprised at which age group ended up being the one younger than me, unfortunately. I think if I look at our contact centre, it really does depend on some of the motivation approaches that you've got. So we've got, there's quite a social grouping in one of our big contact centres, and that social grouping is quite active. And being in that range of 25 to 34, we find it's really good to get them motivated around big group events, getting them out of the office into sort of some of the local towns, doing basketball games together, all of those sorts of things. So when I tie it with that whole going out, working with the company, socializing with your co-workers, etc., then it doesn't really surprise me that that age group is the easiest to motivate.
Okay, well, let's tie in something a bit related to that, because that can also be based on location. So let's ask the question, which location do you find it easiest to motivate staff in? Do you tend to find that in city centre, out of town, or on a business park, in a rural environment, or do you find it with home workers? So if you'd just like to select which location you find it easiest to motivate staff in, city centre, out of town, business park, rural, or home workers. And I know that there's a bit of a spread here, because if you've only worked in one place, you may not have that perspective. So let's just have a look at the results coming through here. I'll just close these and share the poll with here. We've got a sample size of 56 on this particular poll. 68% in the city centre, 24% out of town, 6% rural, 3% home workers. So Fran, I know that you're based in the city centre of Bristol. Quite surprising that an awful lot of call centres out of town doesn't seem to be necessarily the best location for motivating people.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would have said city centre. We are very, very firmly based in city centre. I think there's probably a very strong correlation between age and being in the city centre as well. I know we've very much got a millennial population of individuals. Our average age is 25 in the contact centre. And we've got a high number of people that are really ambitious. So we tend to tie a lot of our incentives in around learning and progression. So I'm not surprised by city centre, but I'd probably say there's a correlation there with the age of people that you would generally find working in that location.
Yeah, it does seem that there is indeed probably a correlation between these two parts. Well, let's dive straight into the meat of today's webinar, and I'd like to pass the baton across to Dan from Moo. So, Dan, if you'd like to take us through your thoughts and things that you're doing to motivate your team in the contact centre.
Sure. I'm hoping I'm the hamburger meat of the presentation. So I thought I'd start by just talking about creativity and doing stuff that's kind of outside of the day-to-day of what agents or reps do within the contact centre. And we try to engage our team and get them involved with doing as much, if you like, extracurricular fun as possible. And one of the things, we are at heart a design company. We've got a lot of creatives working within our customer service team, and we've also got a creative team within our core business team. So we try to foster, their creativity at every turn possible. So recently, I'll play a little video here. We recently got the customer service team to work with the creative team to make a stop animation video. So all of these people sitting in the chair are people from the contact center. They've sat with the creative team and dreamt up this idea of how to showcase what we do in the contact center, and this was something that we put up on our company Instagram channel. But we also do after-work sessions too, so we've done bookbinding sessions, knitting, calligraphy, all sorts of different stuff, letter pressing and things like that. But also, allowing people to get involved with things outside of just talking to customers, whatever it might be, just trying to keep their minds fresh. So doing stuff that's creative, we feel really kind of keeps their minds rejuvenated. also, I mean, I love to eat, and I think keeping agents fed and watered is really important, but also entertained. So we make a big effort, and this is not just in the contact center, this is across all of Moo's offices, across all business teams, and we've actually got 5 offices, and the same effort goes in with every single team on this front. So we've got free fruit and cereal, toast and soft drinks, and we've also got an endless supply of ice cream, pretty much ice cream on tap. Every Friday, the entire company gets together for a catered lunch, and that varies from burgers to pizza to katsu curry, and that's on the house. And that's also, we also have a local baker in our London office that provides cakes and biscuits as well. So you'll stuff your face with a cheeseburger, and then move on to some blondies or brownies straight afterwards. And I mean, we joke at Moo that when you start, not only do you need to pass your probationary period, but you also need to put on your Moo weight. And most people in their first 3 months put on a few pounds. But we try and help to relieve that with some more sporting activities, and some of these are not really particularly good at losing the extra tire around your waist, but table tennis, pool and foosball, and we also run the odd yoga class or Pilates as well. So that's kind of just about the well-being of the contact center agents. This happens in probably most contact centers, but making sure to reward and recognize the team is super important. And we try to do that frequent and often. And we have different programs that do that for different areas of performance. So we have a spot prize program, which is normally just a £5 Amazon voucher, but that can be for just someone getting a named shout out on Facebook or on Twitter. It could be someone gets a name check when someone completes a review on Trustpilot, or even just someone name checking an agent when they complete a survey with me. We also allow agents to nominate each other if they've heard someone go above and beyond, and then we'll go and listen back or look at the interaction, and we award those spot prizes. But then we have a more rigorous program as well on top of that, which is looking at productivity and CSAT and internal quality reviews, and then we recognize people based on kind of a tiered system, and people can get up to £50 voucher, or if they're just doing above what we expect, then they get a chance to spin what we call the Wheel of Wow, and that has things like leave work an hour early. It's have a free lunch on Moo, have a free bottle of wine. So just much smaller things, but still getting everyone up in the middle of the day to spin that wheel. It's got a really loud clicky noise, and it gets everyone's morale boosted for the afternoon. And I know there are some really excellent reward programs out there. We're actually looking at revamping ours at the moment and trying to maybe have a much shinier, bigger prize once a quarter. So maybe we might do an exchange program between our US and UK contact centers. And we're also looking at allowing agents to give their rewards to charity. The next is about just celebrating more than anything, and we want to celebrate the team's success, and that, but not only where we've been successful, but just for the effort and hard work that they put in. So even for the smallest things, we try to treat our team to drinks parties, or like I said, we have a site-wide sale starting today, and we'll have all sorts of games and activities. We'll have one dress-up day during the sale. We'll put on a pancake breakfast where the management team will make breakfast for everyone in the contact center. But also, people in the team get together and organize baby showers or pre-wedding parties for different members of the staff, and that always goes down a treat. We celebrate CS Week. It's a really great opportunity to make a big point across the whole office, in all our offices. And there's an interesting difference that I've seen between our US and UK teams, where the US guys are really keen to dress up, as you can see from this photo, whereas the UK team, because they have to get on the tube in the morning, are slightly less inclined. And spare a thought for this chap here in the red. His name's Saul. He works here in the US. And this was actually his first day at Moo, so he turned up and everyone in the contact center was dressed like they're completely crazy. But someone had brought him an outfit to wear, and he was a good sport. He put on the outfit, and I'm very happy to say that we didn't scare him off, and he's still actually here at Moo, and is the first to dress up when we have a fancy dress day. But not just fancy dress. We have duvet days, like come in your pajamas. We have lots of games and activities to keep everyone up and vibrant. Recently in the UK, we had the Moo Olympics, which was super fun, which we streamed live on Facebook, which was also really fun. And then finally, I think a lot of the time in the contact center, agents and reps just want to be listened to, and they want people to take them seriously within the business. So we make a huge effort to make sure that agents feel they get the opportunity to give feedback, whether that be them giving a 360-degree feedback maybe on their teammates or on their manager, but also on their work environment, the business as a whole. We have lots of engagement surveys, but also listening to them when they are critical of process or policy, and really allowing them to contribute to what it is and how it is that we do it. But it means pretty much nothing unless you're going to take action against it. So taking all of that feedback and making it a priority for management to use it to improve what we do and to increase engagement and keep the team, as you can see, Joe here on the left is super psyched, keeping the team as happy as possible. So we've got lots of engagement surveys and regular catch-ups, but we also have each quarter we have 2 objectives for the management team that are based solely on the feedback that we receive via our engagement surveys and one-to-ones, so that the team understand that we're permanently committed to taking action from their feedback and trying to make the workplace as awesome as possible. And I think that's my last slide, so I'll hand it back over to you, John T.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Dan. There's a couple of interesting questions I've got on that. You've got after-work sessions like calligraphy and yoga and Pilates. Who pays for those sessions?
That's fully funded by Moo, and that's actually a company-wide thing. That's not just in the contact center. But even if we do things like that specific to CS, it comes out of my customer service budget. And truth be told, we actually have at Moo and within each department, we have a line item in our budget which is set aside just for. I don't think it really says this, but it's just for fun. There's no tangible financial benefit in doing it necessarily. It's just let's spend money on making sure we're doing nice things with the team.
Yeah, excellent. And certainly, I guess some of the things like the Wheel of Wow doesn't probably require a great deal of budget, but it's just something that's a little bit different. Did you is that homemade, or did you manage to get some company to make that?
No, we found it on. It actually was our sales team that started it, and they have much more lavish prizes on there. And I think someone won a £500 Apple voucher on that Wheel of Wow. But yes, our US sales team started it. They bought it on Amazon. So we now have 2 in each office, basically, one for customer service and one for sales. And the team love it.
Amazing. So some great stuff there. We're going to jump across to the chat room now, see what's going on, whether any people have sent in any tips or any opinions. So let's jump across to Rachel. And Rachel, if you'd like to talk us through what feedback we've had from the audience.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
We can, yeah.
Fab. So, the chat room's buzzing away. So we've had an opinion from Joe. He said, we find that the simple use of games and free food is motivational for the younger advisors. The older advisors are harder to please. Dan, is that something that you find, or, as you said?
I must say, I think we we're probably 95% in the bottom 2 age groups. So it'd be hard for me to give a very even keel response. But, I mean, I can understand why that might be. In my opinion, still I find the few, even though they are few, the older advisors almost have lower expectations, so they're easier to please, in my opinion. But yeah, I can agree that food is the way to many young people's hearts.
Right. So Jasmine sent in a tip. It's all down to how motivational you are. As long as you can motivate yourself, you can motivate anyone. A smile is always the best start. Richard, do you think that's true? yourself?
I think, like Dan said, it's going to be a really good start towards it. It's always good to be cheerful and look on the optimistic side of things. But again, if it's the only thing that you do, if it's not backed up by anything else within your program, then it's fairly meaningless. It's it's like putting out free food is meaningless without a culture that surrounds it as well. And just sort of looking at that previous question about the younger employees versus the older ones. I wonder, Dan, whether you've ever had a look at, okay, if you give the employees that opportunity to find a problem and then feedback on that problem and then give them the ownership of getting out and solving that problem for themselves, if that gives them that sort of wider, bigger input on the culture and motivation.
Yeah, I mean, we have an unwritten kind of motto in CS, which is don't come with problems, come with solutions. So, I mean, in the past, there was a tendency for some agents to essentially moan about something that they thought was bad. And what we've tried to do is kind of change that from a complaint culture to a solution culture, where we're actually encouraging the agents now to come and say, don't come and moan about a problem. Come and tell us about the problem, but tell us how you think we should go about fixing it. So actually empowering them to come up with a solution, I think definitely makes a big empowerment difference.
And Fran, is that something that you also find in your call centre then?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that Dan mentioned about doing lots of listening, and coming onto my presentation, I'll be talking about the same. But it's encouraging a culture whereby you're working collaboratively with the agents to come up with the solutions rather than just a moan nest. Definitely agree with that.
Great. So we've had a tip sent in from Shona who said managers account for 70% variance in employee engagement, so it's crucial to have their buy-in. Jonty, do you think that's true from what you've seen?
Yeah, I think it's one of the areas that we often forget about, is the role that managers, particularly team managers, can have. And I think it's one of the big mistakes that we often recruit team managers from the floor because they've been good at handling calls, but we don't necessarily think of them in terms of coaches, and we don't necessarily put them on management development programs to improve their coaching. And there's always a bit of a danger that if they get sent lots of email, they could easily start to think their job is actually about responding to email quickly, where it's actually about and interfacing with the rest of the organisation, whereas actually a large part should be about coaching the team.
I agree with that.
Thank you. Okay. So Emma said we have monthly themed incentives. Olympics last month, like Dan said, with games and prizes. This month it's spring. This is South Africa after all. So 2 games per week and a prize money blower at the end of the month for overall winners. Fran, is this the sort of thing that you see yourself doing? I know that you're coming on to a lot of things in your presentation.
Yeah, I think the Olympics was definitely a big theme because we did the same as that as well. I think Emma touches on a point here, which is important to keep refreshing and keep changing incentives. So things become stale very, very quickly, and interest is lost. So it's important to mix things up and keep it with different themes, different ideas. Again, just to keep that motivation running, really.
Jasmine said, we celebrate everyone's birthday with a handmade cupcake and a birthday card signed by everyone in the office. This increases our staff morale a lot and gets people excited. Richard, I don't know whether, I know that you said you're travelling lots. Is this sort of thing that you do in your offices?
I think smaller teams do. I don't think there's a formal culture across the company to actually go and do this. But one of the things we do have that's, I suppose it's a little bit of a retro thing, is we do have a tea and cake trolley that comes around on a Friday. Friday is one of those sort of typical lull days in the week, and especially on the Friday afternoon. So you do get people a little bit more motivated and talking together, whereas they wouldn't normally do that once they see the trolley coming through.
Great. Oh, that sounds brilliant. Shona said, younger generations tend to want to contribute to a cause bigger than themselves, whereas older generations are more driven by rational drivers, security, money. That said, engagement levels seem to be similar. Fran, what have you found about generation-wise in your call centre?
I think it's a really important point, and it's not just about generations, it's about individuals. Different things motivate different people, and it's about understanding as employers that we need to try and approach different people differently. But I'd certainly agree in terms of the younger generation. We've got a huge amount of interest within our organisation of local charities and that sort of thing, and time spent in the local environment helping. So I know that that's definitely something that our guys are interested in, not just coming into work, earning money and going home.
Great. So we've got two more, I think, Jonty. Joe said, work to the principle that there is no work-life balance, only life.
I love that.
Yeah.
Great.
And we've had one final opinion from Shona saying, we have quarterly employee awards, but it's good to have something smaller and maybe weekly like the Wheel of Wow. So lots of people appreciating the Wheel of Wow. They're done.
Great.
Big fan club.
Thank you for that. And Richard, I know you had a comment about we discussed earlier in the week about what we call people.
Yeah, I think it's been not quite a bugbear of mine, but it's something I've noticed quite a lot, is that you see people called agents, and I feel that sometimes that term is a little bit generic, and it doesn't really reflect the increasing difficulty of the jobs that people are doing at the moment. Some of the analysts have called people, enterprise knowledge brokers, which are probably a little bit too far for where we are now. But I really feel that, again, it's not something that you can do as a one-off, but as something that you do that reflects the greater importance of these people. I'd love to find out a different job title. Agents can seem a little bit too low down for the work that people are doing. So I know that we've got a poll queued up for this one, Jonty. Is it a good time to do it now?
Yeah, it's probably a good time to do it now. Hopefully you can see that on my screen. So I'll launch the poll here. And the question is, what do you call your contact center staff? Do you call them agents? Do you call them advisors? Do you call them representatives, like as in customer service representative? Do you call it executive, like a account executive or customer service executive? Or have you got another title that you use? And if you've got another title, if you'd like to put that into the chat room.
Yeah, and I don't think there's going to be a one-size-fits-all answer here. It sometimes depends on the job that people are doing or the vertical that you're working in. But yeah, it'd be really good to sort of find a much more representative sample of what we've got. And there's some fantastic answers coming up in the chat room as well.
Well, let's put the answers up on the screen first from the poll. So quite interesting. Only 27% call people agents, with the majority here being called advisors, which is slightly ahead of other. 10% call representatives. No one used the word executive. And let's have a look at Rachel, if you'd like to read out some of the job titles we've got.
Yes. Right. Marlene said associates. Elle has said customer support specialists. Angela said we call them team members. Joanna's called them detectives, which I think is brilliant.
I'd love to know what industry that is. That's great.
Jennifer says associates. Charlie says we have customer account managers. Jasmine says we call them representatives or agents or even specialists.
Specialists is nice, yeah.
Shona said, I've seen pretty cool ones, possibly gimmicky titles like ambassador or partner. Helen said our call centre staff are referred to as the team. And Sylvie said agents. Like the team.
No ninjas, no ninjas.
Yeah.
They might be there, but nobody's noticed them.
Very good.
So quite a different, range of different titles overall there. So some great food for thought overall. So probably time to hand across to Fran now, And Fran, if you'd like to take us through your thoughts on what you do to motivate people in your organisation.
Absolutely. I thought I was really interesting about the talk of the job titles. You'll see in my presentation that I've mentioned agents. I thought it was probably the most generic term to refer to them. We've actually got agents, experts, and we have got one ninja as well. So we're actually quite proud of that. So in terms of the first thing I wanted to talk about is the amount of importance that we place on listening. I know that it's very easy to say as managers that we spend time listening, but when we're all really busy, it's perhaps one of the things that slips. We very much take an approach that we don't rely on saying something just once for the message to hit home, and we don't just give each person one opportunity and one channel. We use a variety of different communication channels to be able to keep in touch with our agents and understand how they're feeling, good and bad, and also ideas for change. So you'll see some of on the screen some of the logos that we use. These were actually designed by one of our agents who's very creative. The first one is Customer Services Kitchen Sink. This is a Google community page that we have, a bit like a Facebook page. Every person within customer services is a member of the page, and anyone can post anything. We actively encourage it, so we have regular posts about events, local things that are going on, shift swaps, lift shares, various different news. I think there was a Mary Berry has left Bake Off was posted this morning with lots of upset, and we also have a Daily Goat, which is a bit random, but everybody seems to love it. We do Q&A sessions regularly. This will involve up to around 60 agents at one time, and the panel of senior managers within customer services will all take the time to be available, and people can ask whatever questions they might want, with the idea being that if we're all in one place at one time, we can answer those questions effectively. Another one we've got is Think Tank. So that's one where we encourage the guys to come up with process improvement ideas, and to think about it from a commercial point of view, about the frequency of perhaps the issue that they've identified and the cost and benefit of improving it. We do a minimum of 2 focus groups a week with members of the senior management team, and these are a forum for the guys to both get together, representatives from teams across customer services who don't necessarily get to see each other on a day-to-day basis, and just chat about how things are going, things that they're enjoying, things that we need to do more of, and also ideas and suggestions. Got the knowledge base, which is our information station, and we also have our employee forum reps who very often have their ear to the ground as colleagues of the guys on the phones, and perhaps sometimes have a different perspective on things that are going on and feedback, which is always useful. So we found that some of our best ideas and improvements have come about specifically from the feedback that we've had from agents. So it's really important that we do take the time and effort to consistently listen, and we do feel that that pays back. The other thing which Dan touched upon, which is really important, is making sure that we close that feedback loop. So it's all very well spending time listening, but actually it's about going away, doing and responding to things that people raise. We have a feedback log that we keep up to date, and sometimes we make changes off the back of it. Sometimes it's just more of a case of updating people on the situation, or just clarifying why things are the way that they are sometimes. So we are really keen that when we recruit people, they don't just see the customer service advisor role as just a foot in the door to other roles. Of course, we do encourage movement within OVO, but we are looking for people who are extremely passionate about customers and customer service specifically. So we've got a career path which is called Reward Steps, which is designed to give our guys a really clear idea on how they can progress, the timescales and the work that's involved in doing that. And we try to make sure we're really transparent right from the outset about the opportunities that are out there. Of course, any excuse for a celebration, we indulge, and we make sure that any progression, we really celebrate people's achievements. It's really important to us that they feel special for the work and the achievements that they've made. So everyone loves a thank you. I think that's basically common sense. I think for me, over the years, just learning how important it is that different things motivate different people. For some, they may love vouchers. For others, they hate to be the centre of attention, and perhaps just a discreet thank you is enough for them. And for others, they love a huge round of applause. So it's trying to tailor things to the individual and be mindful that different things motivate different people. So we have structured recognition, we have a monthly colleague of the month incentive, and we have a weekly feedback based incentive as well. And we also really try to encourage ad hoc recognition. So we have a cupboard stashed full of thank you cards that people can use just to say a quick thank you or give a bottle of wine. So it's very much part of the culture and not just an afterthought for people. You can see actually on the slide there's an example there where on our kitchen sink community page we actually have a section for shout outs, and agents very often and frequently give shout outs to each other, which is really lovely to see. Just lastly on that, I'd just mention that we're always really mindful to be fair and consistent. What we don't want is to have an approach whereby somebody might receive recognition for somebody for something, and then an equivalent person doesn't then get recognised, and that can sometimes feed a sense of unfairness and actually be detrimental to morale. So we really try to make sure that we're fair and consistent in how and why we reward and recognise people. So as I touched on earlier, our population are really passionate about charities, and we actively encourage giving something back to the local community. As an organisation, we support 3 local charities, and we regularly do fundraising activity for them. So that might be a bake sale, for example. We're doing the Great OVO Bake Off at the moment, which adds an element of competition as well as fundraising. We also encourage the guys to volunteer their time as well, and we give back the equivalent time back to the individuals. So volunteering to help dig trees, for example, or look after the animals at St Werburgh's farm. There's loads of different things that people can get involved with. So we're really good, I think, over creating team spirit, and it's about trying to make sure that every single person who works in customer services feels valued and feels part of the team. So we have lots of fun. You can see from the pictures, fancy dress. Actually, the top left picture that's of the managers, including myself, where agents took great delight in being able to give us a custard pie in the face, which was part of one charity day that we took part in. And we've also got what we call the Shrine, which is our Team of the Year photo section. It extends beyond just the photo that you can see there, and there's lots and lots of pictures of things, events and fun that we've done. Actually, this is another one. I don't know whether you can see there. This is a mouse mat. We have these mouse mats, and we use them as another communication tool. They're quite cheap, but they're refillable, so we update them on a regular basis with different messages, comms, and feel-good things. So that one we just launched yesterday, which was a collage of lots of pictures of things that have happened recently, so people can look at the pictures and actually identify themselves as being part of that picture as well. And then just finally, I thought for us, the reason that we launched OVO was very much about customer service, and actually the reason that we invest so much in our people is not only to make it a great place to work, but also because we really believe that investing in them has a payback in terms of their level of motivation and the hard work that they put into giving a great customer service. So it's definitely worthwhile. And that's that's lovely Eileen, who's one of our trainers there, training one of our new agents in the picture. So yeah, that's it from me.
Wonderful. I think there's some great things there. You mentioned mouse mats and mugs. Is that the sort of thing that you can print at Moodan?
I'm afraid not. I'm afraid not. We print mainly business stationery rather than I don't know what you call it, swag.
Okay. And Fran, you mentioned there about a Google community page, your kitchen sink there. Is that sounds like it's a Facebook type page, like an intranet page where people can post on. Does that cost, or is that a free sort of page you can set up?
No, it's a free Google page, a community page. Actually, different departments, since we launched it in customer services, different departments have also launched their own community pages as well. The reason that we launched it in the first place was because as the company grows and as customer services grows in size, we've now got up to 500 people in customer service. They don't all know each other anymore. We've gone from being a really small company with very much a sort of family feel where everyone knew everyone's names to a much bigger organisation, which is great, but the challenge with that is that people easily lose touch or don't even get to know each other. So it's been a really useful tool for us, for people to be able to keep in touch and engage across the wider population.
That sounds really, really good. And presumably that's one where employees can see it, but the general public can't?
Absolutely, yeah. And they can post anything that they like. And do you know what? There's been some really great, fun, creative things that have come off the back of that. It's always good to embrace all of that extra fun stuff that the individuals bring to the company, as well as their hard work.
Richard, that sounds like quite an interesting idea. Have you got any sort of observations you'd like to add in?
Well, I wonder there whether, if you go back to that first poll we did on the employee ages, I wonder whether that digital approach is something that would appeal a little bit more to the millennials. So if I look at that age group, the classic demographic assumption on them is that they are a little more introverted, maybe a little bit more online led. So I wonder if that online recognition is something that would contribute to greater motivation in that work group, on that employee group.
Yeah, I wonder if that's a question we can ask the audience to see if what their thoughts are on that. Should be good. Right, if we'd like to jump across to Rachel and see what comments we've had from the chat room in terms of tips and so on.
Yeah, lots of things coming in at the moment. One of the main ones that a lot of people are asking is how would you do something with no budget? So, Fran, I mean, I don't know what sort of things you'd suggest.
I mean, obviously it's easier when you have got budget, but it's not always necessary. One thing we did just a couple of weeks ago was we did a quiz, which was to celebrate the 7th birthday of OVO, and we pulled together a quiz and it was online, so there was no printing cost or anything like that, of loads of different fun questions. We did a photo round of mixing different members of the customer services team. They had to identify who was who, that sort of thing, and actually the prize of the winning team and the glory of being the winning team and publicising that didn't cost anything at all to run. It possibly takes a little more imagination and a little bit more hard work than simply being able to go out and spend lots of money on something, but it's definitely possible to do incentives and activity without a budget.
Richard, what would you suggest? Anything?
So little things, I guess. One is the job titles. That's a fairly easy change to swap away for people. The other one, I think, Dan, you mentioned it earlier on about swaps, job role swaps. That wouldn't really cost you anything. You sort of have maybe a wish list that says, okay, for a week I want to work in this department, and for a week I want to work in this department, and you can move people around to A, give them a bit of a motivation on the wider business, and B, a bit of visibility into what they're doing, and hopefully keep them motivated that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and prize-wise, I know, Dan, you said about going home early. Those sorts of things don't cost anything.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, you know, we, even just giving people an extra bit of their lunchtime, you know, half an hour extra at lunch, or giving them an hour to go and play Scrabble in the kitchen. I mean, it sounds really trivial, but it can make a big difference. You know, I think sometimes the team are willing to contribute. You know, they're fairly likely to want to chip in maybe. You know, putting £5 in a pot each can end up being a fairly large chunk of money to do stuff. And there's stuff you can do, you know, go to the park and play rounders, or some people in my team, although I think they're completely bonkers, they go for a jog sometimes together as a group at lunchtime, and you know, that doesn't cost anything other than sweat and tears.
Yeah,
I'd agree, Dan, that getting the team to do stuff. When I visited a council a few years ago, and they had an employee award. What happened is that it was their Employee of the Week, I think, award, and the prize was a homemade trophy. And the person who won that award that week then had to make handmade the trophy for the next week. So people got, you know, all sorts of clever bits of paper and made lovely cards, and it was in Cardiff, this particular one, so someone had made a sort of handmade daffodil out of papier-mâché and painted it all up. It's just, and then the fact it was handmade also increased that sort of, you know, sharing of the team, which was very nice.
A lot of people in the chat room have also said, I know that Dan, you've mentioned this, let the detectives go home half an hour early and let the team leaders take over the calls for half an hour. This is a big motivational tool to see the team leaders mucking in. That was from Joanna. So I think it's, you know, lots of little things. So Jasmine said, we're also doing a Halloween party next month with everyone dressing up, prizes for the best dressed, pumpkin carving, and lots of engaging games with prizes ranging from overnight stays to days off and free lunches. Jonty, do you think fancy dress and themed days are great?
I think themes are often great, whether it's children in need as well, it's quite a good one, or comic relief, telethons. Just, you know, if you can create an element of buzz, and there's enough events during the course of the year that can fit in nicely.
Yeah, Fran, what's some of the days that you've been celebrating?
So we did another example of not spending any budget. We did one for Friday the 13th where people were encouraged to donate one item that went into a lucky, unlucky dip. So there were things in there that ranged from a tin of baked beans through to a really rather nice necklace. So that people had each donated just one thing, but it gave a real sense of fun. And actually for that we charged 50p for people to have a lucky dip, or an unlucky dip, as it were, and then we donated that money to charity as well. So that one worked quite well. But any excuse for fancy dress, you know, St. Patrick's Day, Halloween, fireworks, Christmas, you know, Christmas jumper competition's always a fun one. So yeah, there's loads of different things that we can do around there.
Great. We've actually just had a question come in on the chat room. Does anyone have any advice for motivating home working agents who are rarely on site and occasionally reluctant to get involved? Richard, I don't know whether you have any thoughts on that.
A couple of things as well is really make sure they feel part of your overall brand. So if you've got a particular brand that is well known, make sure that their home working environment's got some good visible examples of that brand. The second one is the sort of chat rooms, whether that's something like a Skype for Business, whether that's some other form of, you know, Cisco, Jabber, those sorts of different platforms that allow people to just have those conversations on an ad hoc level digitally. So you're not relying on bumping into people in the cafe, you're not relying on bumping into people at the coffee machine. Those people can keep up a little bit with what's going on in the office, and you know, really sort of make sure that maybe occasionally you stick up the video camera so that people can start to see each other. We've got over by our water cooler thing a sort of communal video camera, so I can see into the different offices we've got around, and maybe you ought to do that occasionally with people that are home working so that people can see them visibly and make them feel part of the team.
Right, Dan, do you have any home workers with Moo?
We do for awkward shifts, so they don't permanently work at home. We did for a while have some that permanently worked at home, and I think in some ways their motivation is the fact that they're allowed to work from home. You know, you're giving them something that maybe another business wouldn't, and that can be very valuable to them. I think our bigger problem is the people that are working from home are starting work at 5 a.m. and that in itself can be quite demotivational. So I think for us it's tempered with the problem of how do you motivate people that are working horrible hours, and I think to be honest, I think that's a nut we haven't cracked yet.
Janty, what would you suggest then for that situation?
I think there is an element that people do tend to motivate themselves more, but I think it's in that the average age of a call centre worker I think is under 30, but for a home worker it's about 35. So it does tend to apply more to people who've perhaps got a different settled life. But I think if you're working from home, you still need to be part of a team, and I think you still need to arrange people coming into the office regularly, and perhaps what you have to do is sort of pack the motivation into those types of sessions, and perhaps suggesting there's an overnight stop with something like a Skittles evening or something like that, or 10-pin bowling, some activity that built into that period. We've got quite a number of tips coming through, Rachel, I think, in the chat room. What's up next?
Yes, we have. So Emma said, we're also introducing a caught you doing something great for managers to give our quick instant thanks. It can be so easy for managers just to be seen just as the person who catches you doing something you shouldn't or something you can do better, which I like. We've had a question in from Sarah who said, we try many things with our agents, from team building to events in the office. This hasn't always gone down too well. What else could you recommend? It feels like it can be very hard to motivate employees. Fran, I don't know whether you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing worse than forced fun, I guess. I think for me, my approach with that would be to perhaps do some listening groups with them to find out what they thought of it, but also it might be something where actually you can collaborate with them to come up with some of the ideas. Sometimes the biggest resistors are the ones that can actually be the most helpful in getting other people engaged if they feel that they're actually part of it from the outset. So I would probably go down those two routes of fact-finding why it didn't go down too well, but also getting them involved, coming up with the solution as well.
Yeah, we have a monthly team social, and every month it's organised by 2 different people, and it just goes on a rotation. So if you're not happy one week or 1 month, hopefully the next month's your chance to change it up.
Yeah, Richard, have you got any thoughts as well?
I think I quite like Fran's one, is that if you're finding it hard to motivate people, there may be some root causes there that you need to get out first. Getting and doing some of those listening groups where there are no ramifications. So if someone comes in with some very honest feedback, it's then not obviously taken out on that person afterwards. So almost maybe anonymous listening groups to figure out actually there's something fundamental here rather than just a lack of fun. There may be something wrong with the overall setup. One of the comments earlier on about the link to managers, I think 70% of people leave their manager, they don't leave their job. So you've got to look there for the root cause across the whole of the business, maybe not just the within the contact center. It may be that even if you're in a working environment that is not a particularly positive one, so your whole purpose is to stop people doing something or to say no to people, you're going to find it pretty hard to get motivation in that environment.
Unless you're very mean.
Thanks for that. So Jasmine, so actually going on from what Richard said, we have several committees. We have the social, team and event. All of these have a minimum of 8 people in them to discuss how they want to bring fun into the office and find out their ideas. Dan, do you have committees? Oh, actually, you've just said. Sorry.
Less committees, more just trying to spread the love. You know, let as many people take part as possible and make them feel like they're, again, you know, part of the solution rather than just moaning about a problem.
Yeah, Fran, is this something that you do in your call centre?
Absolutely. So we get the guys involved, whether it's fundraising. We've got the CS fundraisers who get together and come up with ideas for things, and also for socials. But we also really like to get agents involved in sort of the more serious project type work. So we recently had a project specifically looking at recruitment and attrition, and we invited some agents to be involved from the outset. It was probably something that maybe they were a little bit outside their comfort zone, being in a meeting with senior managers and they're not used to that format, but actually I think they got a lot out of having an opportunity to have their ideas and their opinions heard, and actually some of the solutions they led. So I think something like that as well. So it's not just the fun stuff, it's actually getting them involved with coming up with the ideas for some of the project work as well, works really well.
I don't know if we got any quick fire tips from the audience, Rachel?
Yes, Emma suggested agents lie on a skateboard and is pushed by the manager to collect balls, which is hilarious. It's a bit like hungry hippos, to be honest.
Yeah, human hungry hippos.
Angela said we've also just had our summer party and it went down really well. Jasmine said we do the birthday cupcakes and cards for all 150 people in the office. Wow, well done you.
Something
hard.
Something that we do actually, obviously we celebrate birthdays, but we also celebrate OVO birthdays as well. So we actually do cupcakes on the anniversary of people working at OVO, and that goes down really nicely.
We have a what we call a mooniversary lunch, where your manager will take you for lunch.
Nice.
So Jasmine said we get all our staff to go to homeless shelters, children's hospitals and nursing homes. This lets our staff give back and the community knows that we're there for them. Richard, I don't know whether that's something that happens at Plantronics.
Some of our offices do, yeah. Again, it's something that if you've got somewhere that's really local to you, that some of the key staff are engaged in, then it's quite good to do that. But again, make sure that you are letting people do this on work time. Don't expect them to go and do this in their own personal time. So carve out a bit of time to take them off the phones. And again, go back to one of those other tips, get the team leaders on the phone so that the staff can go out and do this in work time.
Helen said, I'm a great believer in training every one of the team to work towards being a leader, which I think is very nice. And we've had one final question from Craig. Do you feel that team managers can sometimes get missed out when rewards and recognition are given out? Dan, I don't know.
Yeah, I can understand how that might be. Certainly, they're not part of the same program, but I think, you know, that's on their. That just goes up and up the chain, right? I mean, their managers need to be doing as much for them to recognise their input as possible. They might not get the same sort of rewards, but they're probably getting paid a little bit more money than the guys in the front line are. But I mean, you know, going back to the question about if you don't have any money, it's not just about the financial or some sort of tangible reward. It's just about recognising when people are making a really big effort or going that extra mile. So yeah, I mean, I make a point of trying to go not just to my management team, but going one level down and talking to team leaders and supervisors, and you know, making sure that I know who the people are that are going above and beyond, and just saying thanks, basically.
And I think team motivation can also be very powerful as well, in terms of, you know, popping the red team against the yellow team against the blue team, and that doesn't necessarily have to be on, you know, sales or customer service. It could be on a whole range of different type, you know, almost, you know, bizarre, you know, like the surprise for anyone whose surname begins with A or something like that. You can get different things that can just bring, and then the team managers also, fit as part of that structure as well.
Great. So I think that's all we've got time for now.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you so very much for that. There's a lot of details we've got. We've hit the top of the hour, I'm afraid. So if in the chat room you could say in 1 or 2 words, what did you like best about today's webinar? It would be great if you could add that in. You can watch a replay and get a copy of the slides from callcenterhelper.com/recorded webinars. That'll be available later on this afternoon. Next week we're going to go to Call Center Expo, so there's no webinar next week. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time where we look at efficiency versus effectiveness. So I'd just like to thank all of our speakers. Dan, I'd like to thank you for joining us from Providence in Rhode Island. Thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure.
And Fran from OVO in Bristol, I'd like to thank you for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you.
And to Richard Kenny from Plantronics in Wootton Bassett, thanks for joining us today.
All right, thanks, Dante.
And thanks, everyone. We'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. Thanks very much, then. Bye-bye.